Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share. In the description of this video, you can find my compiled link. Through there, you can find ways to support the channel, my other social media, and more. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching. How's it going, everybody? CJ here, back with another video. We're doing a first thought today. This first thought is on Pia Nalaar Consul Revival. I started building this deck out, and at first I was kind of iffy on it. Seemed kind of cool, kind of interesting, 2-mana commander. As I went through it, there are some really cool synergy cards with this commander, and there is some very powerful stuff that you can do. And the deck just seems fun. The categories I'm going to be talking about today are, first, ways to cast spells from exile and play lands from exile, so that way you can make Thopters. After that, we have some stuff that synergizes with you making tokens, because you're going to be making a lot of tokens in this deck. And then additional ways to make Thopter tokens, because Thopter tokens seem pretty good. You give them haste, seems fun. Then we have ways to make your Thopter tokens bigger or capitalize on your Thopter tokens, just to make it so that way they can do a lot more damage or just benefit you more than just a 1/1 flyer. Then I'm going to be going over some additional Thopters you can throw in the deck to really make it like a Thopter tribal deck, along with some sacrifice outlets, because you're making a lot of tokens. Sacrificing tokens tends to be pretty good. And then a bunch of one-off cards. As a 2-mana commander, this card seems very powerful and it can do some fun things. I'm excited to talk about it. We're going to hop on into this, starting with some cards that let you cast spells and play lands from exile, so that way you can trigger Pia Nalaar as much as possible. This is going to be your main card draw engines. It's going to be your token generation. Really important. This is going to be the bulk of the deck because it really makes the deck run. Some cards like that are Atsushi, Belborka, Birgi, the backside of Birgi specifically, Blazing Crescendo, really fun little combat trick there, Brazen Cannonade, Breya's Apprentice, which is really nice because it's also a sack outlet for your artifacts, Campus Renovation. There's 4 different Chandras that work really well, so you're going to see 2 right now, and you're going to see 2 more right now. Those seem like great includes. Commander Liara Portier, really cool card here, discounts your cards from exile too, which is nice. Commune with Lava. Curse of Hospitality, which is perfect for this deck when you're attacking with a bunch of little flyers. Dark Dweller Oracle can turn your Thopters into additional cards that you can cast from exile, which will generate you more Thopters. Itali, letting you cast things off your opponent's library and your own for free. Experimental Synthesizer, which is nice because it's on an artifact which you can sacrifice using many cards that I'll be talking about today, and generate an additional card with that. Grenzo seems unbelievable in this deck. When you have all these little flyers that are going to be flying around hitting people, you can trigger Grenzo like crazy. Hedron Detonator is an awesome card in this deck. It lets you sacrifice basically 2 Thopters to exile top card of your library and let you play it this turn. All you have to do is tap it. Great. And whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, it deals 1 damage to target opponent. So every time you make a Thopter, you're dealing damage. So whenever you cast a spell from exile, you're making a Thopter, dealing damage, and you can sacrifice that Thopter to Hedron Detonator to get another card in the future. Jaya gives you the ability of impulse drawing. You have Jessica's Will, which also nets you a ton of mana. Lelia, perfect for this deck. Knowledge Pool and Possibility Storm are 2 fantastic cards for this deck. I love both of these cards. They're really cool because they kind of screw over your opponents by making their hand more randomized, while a lot of your card draw is actually exiling an impulse draw. So you're not hit as hard with these cards. Like, you'll be able to cast what you want to, but anything you cast from hand will still get exiled and you'll get a free exile trigger. So I think that these cards are auto includes in this deck. Nayali seems like an auto include. Attacking tokens you control have double strike, fantastic with your Thopters. And whenever 1 or more tokens you control attack a player, you exile cards from top of your library. And if you during any turn you attack with a token, you may play that card. Auto include in this deck, amazing card. Outpost Siege, just an additional card each turn via impulse draw. Plorgan Nasir, lets you steal cards from your opponents. Professional Facebreaker is awesome for this deck. It'll let you treasures whenever you hit your opponents, and then you can use those treasures to impulse draw. Auto include, and because you're going to be able to hit your opponents with flyers easily. There's Reckless Impulse and Ren's Resolve. Those are just very good rate cards. Showdown of the Scalds, really cool card for this deck. Swords of Forge and Frontier, fun. Your Thopters can carry that very easily. Tavern Brawler, Uba Mask, just every card you cast is going to be from exile. Love that. Urabrask, Valakut Exploration, so your lands can kind of net you cards. Windbrisk Heights, so your land literally can cast you a card for free. You're going to attack with Thopters, so it'll be very easy to trigger that. And you find some prisoners, just a good utility card there. You're going to be making a lot of Thopters with this deck, and a lot of Thopter tokens specifically. So you're going to want to run some token synergy so you can really capitalize on these tokens as much as possible. Some good token synergy cards include Anointed Procession and Mondrak to double your tokens. Benny Brax, Idol of Oblivion, Platoon Dispenser, and Staff of the Storyteller can get you cards. Divine Visitation, if you don't want Thopters, why not 4/4 Angels? That seems pretty good. Inspiring Leader and Intangible Virtue, along with Prava, give you some good buffs. Prosperous Partnership can ramp you. Rose Room Treasurer is a very cool card. Might Overseer. And then you have Perforos and Terror of the Peaks, which can potentially burn out your opponents. And Elish Norn, just make your tokens really big. You're probably going to want more ways to make Thopter tokens than just Pia Nalaar. And there's a bunch of cards that make Thopter tokens at a pretty decent rate. Some of those are Foundry of the Councils, Hangerback Walker, Loyal Apprentice, Master Trinketeer, which is really good because it's also a Lord, the other two Pias, Retrofitter Foundry, which can also upgrade your Thopters into 4/4s, Thopter Shop, which is also card draw. I think Thopter Shop is a extremely powerful and underplayed card. Birthing Bows, Whirler Maker, and Maskwood Nexus are great late game mana sinks to make Thopter tokens, especially Maskwood Nexus because it turns all of your creatures into Thopters, and so it gives everything haste. That seems like a great include. 1/1 Thopters just aren't that scary though, so you're going to want to upgrade those Thopters. You're going to want to make them a little scarier so that way your opponents are actually going to lose the game to these Thopters. Some ways to do that are Alibu, really sweet card in this deck, Chief of the Foundry, Crypto Thrall, Jor Kadeen, Lochiel, I love the card draw on that card and the protection, Lita, essentially Vigilance, Steel Overseer, just makes them bigger every turn, Tempered Steel, Dark Steel Forge, because what's scarier than a bunch of indestructible 1/1 Thopters, Bronze Guardian, Adriana for the melee, Blade Historian, Double Strike is good, Graz, turn your Thopters into Juggernauts, seems funny, seems fun, Radiant Destiny, Metallic Mimic, Obelisk of Erd, Rally the Ranks, Shared Animosity, Glory of Warfare, Dictate of Heliod, which has Flash, which is sneaky, Mana Echoes, not really making them bigger, but going to net you a lot of good utility off of it, and Mechanized Warfare, because they are artifact sources, so you can deal an additional damage, and any of your red sources like Perforos or Terror of the Peaks will deal an additional damage, which is nice. Now it's time to talk about some of the more memey cards to add to this deck, because Thopter Tribal is not really the way to go, but there's a handful of Thopters I figured I'd mention, because they seem kind of fun for the deck. You have cards like Hope of Girapur. I love Hope of Girapur. I have a Hope of Girapur Voltron deck. Seems fun to throw into this deck too. Liberator, actually a very good Thopter. Ornithopter and Ornithopter of Paradise. Especially Ornithopter of Paradise I think is an auto include, because that's just a 2 mana dork with haste. Seems fantastic. Ornithopter itself seems fine, nothing crazy. Pilgrim's Eye is good fixing. Reconstructed Thopter is good with sack outlets. Sky Scanner, extra card draw. If you have Recursion, that's great. Thopter Assembly, Thopter Squadron. And then we have some Changeling cards like Bloodline Pretender, great card for this. Irregular Cohort, just make 2 Thopters, seems good. Mirror Entity, it can also just be a very good late game mana sink to win you the game. Let's say you have 10 Thopters in play, you can just dump like 7 mana into Mirror Entity, boom, all your Thopters are 7/7s flying and you just win the game. And then Taurian Mauler, just a Thopter that's going to get really, really big. These 1/1 Thopters can be sacrificed as well to do many different things. There's a lot of good sacrifice outlets for this deck that you can toss in just because you're making a lot of tokens. You might as well utilize them as more than just attacking. There's a lot of ways to turn your tokens into additional value. Some of these sack outlets that I wanted to mention are Arcbound Ravager. You can kind of sacrifice your Thopter tokens as they're getting killed or blocking, chump blocking, whatever, and then grow Arcbound Ravager, and eventually sack Arcbound Ravager to itself to move those counters onto an unblocked Thopter to get in lethal damage. Duretti, Goblin Engineer, and Goblin Welder auto includes for this deck. You have plenty of artifact sacrifice fodder, so you can kind of get back whatever you want from your graveyard. Goblin Engineer is one of my favorites because you can also tutor out a artifact card to put into your graveyard so you can kind of cycle with. Farid, new card, seems pretty cool for the deck. Osgir, nice sacrifice outlet, can also reanimate in a way cards from your graveyard. There's Phyrexian Altar, Krark Clan Ironworks, and Ashnod's Altar that can all generate mana by sacrificing creatures. Loreen, so that way you can kind of protect yourself against some scary creatures. Goblin Bombardment to get some extra damage in. And the Golden Throne just to ramp you like crazy. If you do add a bunch of sacrifice outlets, cards like Vicious Shadows, Weatherlight Complete, and Scrap Heap could be fun to include. Also, Treasure Nabber could be a fun to include if you run a bunch of artifact-based sacrifice, because you can sacrifice your opponent's artifacts that you steal with Treasure Nabber. And now we're on to the last section. I have a lot of really cool one-off cards I wanted to mention here. They didn't fit to any specific category, but a lot of them just extremely powerful and synergistic in this deck. Starting off, we have Inspiring Statuary. Turn your Thopters into mana, essentially. Blinkmoth Urn. Same thing, turn your Thopters into mana. Delayed Fire Blast. If you can exile this and cast it off the exile, you'll get a ton of extra damage off, and it's a great card. You have some ways to steal your opponent's cards, like Chaos Wand, Wand of Wonders, Direfleet Daredevil, and Stolen Strategy. And all of those will be triggering Pia Nalaar. The Thopters fly. They can hold swords really well, so cards like Dousing Dagger, and all of the other swords, like Sword of X and Y, seem like great includes in this deck. I'm gonna wait a second so that way you can see all of them. Then there's Cathar's Crusade and Starlight Spectacular. Both of those, if you've got a big board of tokens, can just end up winning you the game by making your tokens super big. Path of Metal. You can flip this card extremely easily in this deck because all your Thopters have haste. Helm of the Host. Why not have 2 Thopters every time you cast a card from exile? That seems awesome. Why not 3? Just wait another turn. Love it. Halo Fountain can end up being a win con in this deck, and also can just net you cards or create more tokens. Subira is a very cool card for this deck because Subira can net you a ton of card draw and make certain creatures unblockable, which is nice, but she's really there for the card draw. Lots and lots of card draw. There's a few cards I wanted to mention that trigger when you cast spells from either exile or from anywhere other than your hand. Keeper of Secrets, Nalfeshni, Passionate Archaeologist, and Wild Magic Sorcerer are fantastic includes, auto includes in this deck. Skull Clamp. You pay 1 mana, equip it to a Thopter, draw 2 cards when the Thopter dies. Great include. Ardaz. Really cool for this deck because it gives a boost to your Thopters when they enter the battlefield, and since they have haste, they'll be able to attack immediately. Love that. Rabble Rousing, one of my favorite cards in a token-based deck. It can make a ton of tokens for you, and with Hideaway, it fits synergistically with Pia Nalaar because you'll be able to cast that card from Hideaway, and boom, make a Thopter. For additional card draw, you have Welcoming Vampire and Tashia's Welcome. If you go extra wide with tokens, Warp World and Over the Top can be a very fun win con for this deck. Strixhaven Stadium can also be an easy win con in this deck that's also a mana rock, which is super nice. You have Unwinding Clock to essentially give all your Thopters vigilance, and you get a lot of extra value off of your mana rocks and stuff like that. And lastly, Throne of the God Pharaoh. This card can just outright win you the game if you have enough Thopters in play. You attack with 10 Thopters, they're all tapped, you deal 10 damage, really powerful card there. And that is everything I have for Pia Nalaar, Consul of Revival. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time. Peace out, everybody.